How Middle East wars affect global oil prices. The Middle East is home to some of the largest oil reserves in the world, making it a critical player in global energy markets. How do wars and conflicts in the Middle East impact oil prices globally? Have there been instances when oil price surges have caused international economic turmoil? Which countries and economies are most affected by these fluctuations? And how do they ripple into domestic economies in the West? Oil price spikes and global economic impact. Conflicts in the Middle East often disrupt oil production and transportation, leading to supply shortages and price spikes. One of the most significant oil crises occurred in 1973 during the Yom Kippur War between Israel and a coalition of Arab states. In response to Western support for Israel, the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, OAPEC, imposed an oil embargo, leading to a quadrupling of oil prices. This embargo severely disrupted global markets, causing inflation and recessions in many Western countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom. Another notable instance was the 1990 Gulf War, when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Kuwait was one of the world's largest oil producers, and the conflict caused oil prices to double. This price hike contributed to economic slowdowns, particularly in countries highly dependent on oil imports, such as Japan and European nations. More recently, tensions between the U.S. and Iran, especially after the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, led to fears of supply disruptions. Iran threatened to block the Strait of Hormuz, a critical passageway for global oil shipments. Although a full blockade did not happen, the mere possibility caused oil prices to fluctuate. Key economies affected by oil price volatility. Countries with large economies but limited domestic oil production, such as Japan, China, India, and the European Union, are among the most vulnerable to oil price fluctuations. For these nations, rising oil prices increase the cost of goods and transportation, leading to inflation and slower economic growth. In Western countries like the United States, even though it has become more self-sufficient in oil production, rising oil prices still affect domestic gasoline prices and manufacturing costs. This creates a ripple effect throughout the economy, as consumers have less disposable income to spend on goods and services, ultimately slowing down economic growth. Impact on domestic economies in the West. In Western nations, domestic economies feel the pinch of rising oil prices through higher gasoline and heating costs. Businesses also suffer from increased production and transportation costs, leading to inflation. For example, during the 2008 financial crisis, oil prices reached over $140 per barrel, contributing to an already fragile global economic environment. In many cases, oil price spikes can trigger recessions, as consumers and businesses struggle with increased energy costs. Major oil reserves in the Middle East. The Middle East holds some of the largest proven oil reserves globally, with Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran being the top players. The Ghawar field in Saudi Arabia is the largest onshore oil field in the world, with an estimated 58 billion barrels of recoverable oil. Other significant reserves include Iraq's Rumaila field and Kuwait's Bergen field. These vast reserves give the region its critical role in global oil markets, making any conflict or instability in the area highly disruptive. Conclusion. Wars and conflicts in the Middle East have consistently influenced global oil prices. From the oil embargo of 1973 to the Gulf War and more recent tensions involving Iran, price spikes have caused significant economic disruptions worldwide. Countries with large oil import needs are particularly vulnerable, and even domestic economies in the West experience inflation and slowed growth when oil prices rise. Given the region's vast oil reserves, Middle Eastern stability remains crucial for global economic stability.